But yeah, we'll make sure that.
It is.
Yeah, that's why I probably wouldn't have done this. It was exactly today. It was like, it was the stars completely aligned. So this has to cover off all of the, this is all of the birthdays from that year, which covers 1, 2, 3, unless we land on somebody's
Actual
exact birthday.
I feel the
again.
pressure now.
Yeah, cause like,
there's-
mine was December 2nd.
Oh, make sure, yeah, you need to say
Did we,
that.
did we actually have a council meeting that day?
No, that's,
Yeah.
Did we have a council meeting that day?
I'll say
Mine was the 5th and we didn't do anything either, so.
Oh, right.
Oh yeah, we did have it. I think we missed yours. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think mine was actually the council day, but I have to go back and look.
I feel like there's a lot
see,
of
now you
pressure.
set the precedent at like
Yeah.
cake.
Yeah, cake and
Well, it
singing.
takes a lot to try to get us organized. I thought, I don't wanna make people run back after dinner. That
Well,
was
the
the whole, how do I-
firefighters came. They could
And
have.
then nobody wants to stay late because she's gonna wanna go home and be with her kids, so.
There's one of the firefighters and his wife. You can go, you can start.
We're gonna start, even though we're not live?
We're live.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, thank you to the regular council meeting of Tuesday, April the 1st. We all, looks like we all survived till noon today for sure, without any adverse April Fool's pranks. And it's a nice day and spring has arrived for sure. So I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Syilx, and the Six people, as home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers, and we respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. I received no late items before the meeting, so if I could have an adoption of the agenda as circulated. Moved by Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Pinero. All those in favor? And that carries. We have one set of regular meeting minutes for February the 4th. If I could have a mover. Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Woodward. Councillors, any errors or omissions? Seeing nobody putting their hand up. All those in favor? And that carries. So we get to start today with some awards, which is always so exciting. So I'd like to start by calling up Scott and the chief, if you want to come up so you can be part of the presentation photos as well. And so I'd like to, so Scott Jeffries started as an auxiliary in 2001, in 2001, and has since risen through the ranks to captain. He comes to the city with a background with BC Wildfire Service, where he was on the RAP attack team and repelled into areas that were difficult to access. He has been a part of the Nelson Fire Smart from its inception and has contributed to many mitigation projects throughout the city. Scott also has a strong interest in rock climbing, which makes him a natural fit to lead our high-angle rope rescue team. And I also would have to say that, you know, you have a pretty good look on Facebook there. He also likes, looks like backcountry skiing and maybe a little bit of kiteboarding or
Everything that Nelson has to offer.
or windsurfing. Well, I think that windsurfing shot that was there last week was in Parksville, but
That's right.
yeah. Anyways, so.
Keen interest in following me there, thank you.
Well, no, I mean, well, you know, you need to know what your staff is up to, so.
Great.
And you always have great shots. I love those snow shots of like the point to the skis. I have another friend that takes the pictures between the ears of her horse.
For
into
me,
the
it's about
distance.
getting out with my dogs.
Yeah, and you got some nice shots with your dogs there. So, Scott, 20 years.
Okay,
We hope that you stay with us for a few more years.
Absolutely.
It's been wonderful to have you as part of the team here with us.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
There we go.
It's my smile. I think Donna's taking some photos.
Yeah, Donna's the photo taker. Yeah,
Didn't see
great.
your button.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And don't lose that.
Thanks very much.
Don't lose the bat.
Thanks, Chief. Great working with you all these years.
Congratulations, Scott.
And Chief, I'll just keep you off to the side
stay up
here
here
for
In your
a little bit. So next up, we have Mark Thibault, my good friend, that we've had many conversations on. Please come on up here. Over the years, talking about union matters, but today we are awarding Mark his British Columbia Long Service Award for 25 years. He started as an auxiliary in 1999, moved up the ranks, and is now the department's training officer. Mark spent years on the union executive, supporting the relationship between the union and management in a calm and respectful way. Before joining Nelson Fire and Rescue, he was a teacher. Now that I didn't know about you. This has lent itself well to his role as the public education officer, and for years was one who attended our community schools during Fire Prevention Week. As a training officer, Mark has successfully led the auxiliaries through the process of getting certified for exterior level fire suppression and is beginning to start the interior suppression certifications. He has a passion for safety, learning, and always showing leadership and humility. And the other thing I know about Mark is that you like to ride your bike.
Perfect.
And he's also he's got a real philanthropic streak, that he's a major fundraiser for the Professional Firefighters Association. You will often see him outside of the liquor store or by Save On Foods in all kinds of weather with the boot, collecting money for charity. So congratulations on 25 years. And you get a lovely award here. So this is your plaque. I'll let you hold that.
Thank you.
And there's a little letter from the fire commissioner.
Okay.
And you get to have a lovely medal to add. And it actually has your name engraved on the back. So this can join your other medals on your uniform.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. And we're all getting here for. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service.
I heard a rumor that you might be retiring.
One day.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good.
Congratulations, Scott, that's great.
Thank you. 25 years, great. And last but not least is our fire chief. Receiving his British Columbia Long Service Medal, again for 25 years. He started with the auxiliary in 1999 and moved up the ranks all the way to the top and was promoted to fire chief in May of 2022. In his first 3 years as chief, Jeff has tackled the very large projects of initiating the new fire hall feasibility study, site location and design, conducting a review of the department and the services provided through the fire master plan, and leading the first ever prescribed burn in the center of town at the highway interchange. Throughout his years with Nelson Fire and Rescue Service, Jeff has shown strong leadership, a willingness to fix anything and everything, and a sharp attention to detail on everything truck related. So congratulations, Chief. And what do I know about the chief that isn't on my little page there? I know this guy is a crazed fisherman.
And hunter.
And hunter. He likes to fish. I've seen his boat many times. He's got that really nice boat. I'm still waiting for the invite to go out and try casting a line, and again, another award, and you have your name on the back here, Jeff?
I'll have to start putting them on my uniform.
Yes,
Yeah, right.
So shows.
for those dress-up days, yes. So
Thank you
there
very
you
much.
go. Thank you. And then just tuck that in behind from the fire commissioner there, wanting to give his thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe, Donna, could you take a picture of all three of them together there at the back in their uniforms, please, for our records?
Thank you very much.
Wow.
It's hard to do when you're only 35. 36 now.
It's so wonderful to be able to recognize members of our fire service for the job that they do and the services to the community that they perform every day. We're very fortunate here in the city of Nelson to have a independent, fully professional fire department. So anyways, thank you gentlemen for being able to make it this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Gonna stick around for the other one?
Let's get some stuff. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, I mean, we've been so busy for so long. I've been trying to figure out where we were gonna fit that in, and then finally I just said, we just gotta do it. So it's great. It's great to be able to do these long service awards.
Good to celebrate.
Yes, it's very good to celebrate. That's what today is all about. And so we're gonna go next into our workshops. We have 2 workshops coming to us this evening. The first one is the city branding update. And so the communications coordinator, Donna Ditson, will provide council with a presentation on the city's rebranding exercise, and hopefully we have all of the technology working, because we will need the overhead for this. And council, you did receive both of the workshop educational slide packages late this afternoon, so they are available to you via email. But look at that, we're up and running. Excellent. So Donna, over to you.
Perfect, thank you. So the city has done a bit of a refreshed branding project. You can see it on the main slide there, and we wanted to walk you through what we've done and how it relates to the coat of arms and what the plans are for going forward. So first off, I just wanted to touch on why a brand matters. So a brand matters because it's your visual identity as an organization, and it helps all the citizens recognize that when we're talking to them that it's the city and that it's a trusted messenger. It's a visual shortcut. It can help to build trust, and something that might not be as obvious is that it's a lot easier and a lot more cost efficient to be implementing than creating new things every time. So our visual identity before the brand refresh, we had a lot of different pieces, a lot of different designs, different fonts, different colors, and all of these individual pieces are great on their own, but you can't tell that it's from the city. You can't tell that it's from the same organization. So what we wanted to do is come up with something that was more cohesive and that wasn't taking as much staff time to put every individual piece together or time from a designer. So our visual identity now is a lot simpler and nice and crisp and clean. It is really visually driven where possible, and there's a lot of white. There's a lot of our green from our logos in it, and you'll notice this swoosh that we've got at the bottom. That is a piece that is going to be consistent across all of our communication pieces. So just some information on how the brand refresh came about. So the city's been talking about doing this for years and years. Council approved a brand refresh back in 2024. And a communications team was established back in 2024 as well. And that team is made up of 20 people from all across the organization, including police, fire, hydro, library, climate and energy. There's a long list there, but it touches on all of the different areas. Sorry. In the fall of 2024, our communications team and our graphic designer, who's been working with the city for years, started to develop a vision for the brand refresh. And this winter, we started to use it. So budget considerations. Council had approved a budget of $10,000 for the brand refresh. We are considerably under budget for that right now. The work came in at $5,700. And that includes a brand style guide, it includes logos and corporate templates, and it includes some social media templates. And all of those together give us a lot of ideas of give the communication team a lot of ideas for how we can be creative with it and how we can use it for additional pieces, so that it really sets us up to use it for success. Costs are going to be kept to a minimum going forward. Basically, what we're doing is applying the brand to everything new, but we're not retroactively going back and applying it to everything else. So for example, business cards will just be updated as needed. And then fleet vehicle decals, those will only be updated as new vehicles are purchased. So who's included in the brand? The brand is covering the more narrowly defined city. It's not covering hydro, police, fire, or the library, although it could. It's up to them if they wanted to be part of it. And so they've got options of join in and start using the brand, work with me and our designer to develop a customized one that pulls from this one but is their own individual piece, or not adopt it at all and keep going with their own pieces. And in that case, all they would need to do is stop using some of the corporate pieces that we've all been sharing, like the letterhead. So here are the logos. You'll be familiar with all of these, of course, but we actually had probably about 20 logos, maybe more, in all different colors, and they were for all different departments. We're really narrowing that down to here are the main logos. So the essential brand elements, as I mentioned before, there's this green swoosh across the bottom, and then there's the city logo. So you'll see that on all of the communication pieces from now on. Calibri is going to be the only font that we'll use. You can see some ways that we use it for different headings. Our main colors are the dark green from our logo and the light green that's also in our logo, as well as black and white. And then we have additional color options for graphics. So these will be designed by by professional designers or are up for the communications team to be using. And so there's different colors there that have been derived from designs we've already been using. For example, like the OCP graphic that's on the slide there. And then it also includes shades of the main brand colors.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you. Through the chair, would you reuse that graphic then?
Yeah.
After the OCP use?
Yeah, we've been using it on lots of things already.
Okay.
I believe it's on the e-bike campaign.
Right.
That's coming up now too.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
So great, so this is multifunctional.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I was saying, these are the additional color options for graphics. And so here's the coat of arms with the consistent colors. You can see the dark green and the light green from the logo in the coat of arms. And here is the current use for the coat of arms. Right now, it's on council materials, it's on legal documents, it's on legislative services documents, and it's on our checks. And you can see there, I've got an example of our letterhead, business cards, and the council agendas. What I'm proposing that we do for the, with the coat of arms going forward is that we keep using it for all of those same purposes, but then we also incorporate the swoosh and the city logo, just so that it's really clear that it's from the city, as opposed to if we look at the previous slide, if you look at the business card there, it's not quite as clear that it's from the city as if it also had the city logo attached like this.
Nice.
So the communications team, when we were putting this together, we brainstormed about what the city's voice would be. And we talked about using plain language, keeping communications at about a grade 6 to 8 reading level so that it's easy and accessible for all residents across the city to understand. We also talked about being friendly in how we talk, being reliable, professional, transparent, precise, informative, and then also, where appropriate, being fun and playful. There's a strong emphasis on imagery with this brand because it's so simple. But a big benefit to us right now is that there is a staff person who is a talented photographer and videographer. He's been working, that's Colin Burwell, works over at the youth center. He's been doing this kind of work for about 20 years and he's fantastic. And so he's going to be helping us for about 10 hours a month build a photo and video database.
Great.
And so what should be branded? Basically, every single thing that residents are going to see. The way I look at it is if more than 2 people are going to see it, then it should have the brand on it. And this should be internal and external, really on absolutely everything. And just here's some examples of the brand in action. So here's some examples of posts for social media. You see how the farmers market can be included and the OCP, as well as food cyclers. So you can see how we're able to differentiate between different programs and services while still keeping everything consistent and aligned with the brand. Here's how the new business cards look. Here's the website now. We've used the brand on the budget quick facts that we shared earlier this year. So in terms of launching the refresh brand, the initial steps, there was a presentation that the designer and I did to the communications team back in December. We started our initial implementation right after that, since it went over really well. We did a presentation to department heads in February, and then there's today's presentation. Next steps are going to be a lot of staff training. So that'll be for managers and directors, as well as an all-staff update on the intranet. And then I'll be holding a lunch and learn to talk to people about the brand. We're going to be updating our design software as well. And we'll be limiting our detailed design work to 2 designers and the trained communication team members. So the rest of staff are going to have access to things like the letterhead templates and the PowerPoint templates, but for more detailed design pieces, that will be to the communications team.
That's Councilor Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering about the optimization level for phones on all of this. And of course, that's probably not about that. Is that all functioning well as it goes to phone?
Yeah, and we have recently gotten from our web providers, we've recently gotten I think it's called a plugin. Anyways, we've gotten a way to be able to view our whole website on mobile now, so that we can see both when we're in the back end without having to pull out our phone.
That's very
Yeah.
awesome, thank you.
It's going to be getting better. We'll be doing an update on the communications policy, and then there's going to be ongoing implementation of the refresh brand. And then just for some background, we are upgrading our design software. It's called Canva. Right now we have maybe about 30 people that are accessing it. We actually, because everyone's using the same login, we don't know how many people are accessing it and if previous employees have access to it or not. So anyways, in order to meet Canva's requirements and to be consistent with IT's requirements, we're going to be upgrading that and making sure that everyone will have their individual logins. So it'll be more secure that way, and it's also going to allow for greater branding oversight and for more consistency that way. And then it's going to allow us to make sure that it's the trained communication team members who are creating new designs. So that'll just allow us to make sure that everything's exactly how we want it to be. Another thing that's new that you've probably seen is we've got Let's Talk Nelson now. This is a platform that we use Social Pinpoint for this, and it allows us to have this engagement little website that's kind of embedded within our site that lets us do more engagement opportunities and lets them it gives a lot more options with what we do for engagement. We've used it for the OCP consultation, we used it for feedback on the budget, and then we've used it for some surveys about the farmers market as well. And generally the feedback has been really positive on that. And that's it. That's the new brand.
Thank you.
Or the refresh brand.
Yeah. Unless there's any questions for Donna.
Great.
Just
Councillor Lockenberg.
one really quick, signatures for council, or e-signatures? You said 2 or more people, so when we send out emails, should it have the branding?
Yeah, the email signatures will stay the same.
We have email signatures?
I think
Yes,
we're,
council?
no, I think I think we've aligned a little bit, but I think it's always kind of just been each councillor's kind of have their own
Yeah.
signature. It's not been like a standardized.
Okay. We can share the corporate template for e-signatures.
I thought that everybody was supposed to have that.
I have it.
Yeah, I had asked for that when everybody kind of came on board, that we would all, in an email, have the same, if you were writing it off of, your email for the city, that it would look the same at the bottom in terms of the plan acknowledgement and.
Okay.
So,
So maybe you can send it out again with the refresh logo, I guess?
I'll circulate that.
Councillor Page.
Yeah, thanks for giving us a refresh on the work, it looks really great. Feedback I've been getting on the Let's Talk, especially around the budget, was and I said this to Amy as well, because I know she put a lot of time delineating that in. It was really well received and really really high quality way to digest the data. Will we, similar to Bottenberg's point before we go to KBLG, will we have refresh cards ready to go?
Refresh business cards?
Yeah, with them,
If you want them, yes.
because I think that would probably make a little bit of sense. And yeah, it looks really consistent, really good across the board. It's nice and readable. I've been noticing it in the presentation, so. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, seeing no other questions, so we just need to make sure that we've got the new logo on the bottom of our city emails that are going out, and it sounds like a few new business cards would be something nice to have with the new swoosh. And yes, no, I think it's wonderful. I like that you can see, I've forever wanted to get rid of, it took me a long time to realize that the black line on the bottom of the business card was actually the city address. It was like, there's actually something written in there. It's not like a little digitalized code of the, QR scan. It was actually the address, so this will be nice. It's so embedded at the bottom of the, I don't know how they ever got it that small. Anyhow, thank you very much, Donna.
Thank you.
Hopefully, enjoy your evening. Enjoy some of those last minutes of sun.
My understanding, we're gonna have a blanket business card order, or should we communicate individually if we need business cards?
I think maybe communicate individually if you'd like to use up what you've got, or
I've used them up.
have some new
I
ones.
just didn't wanna order, cause I don't like the old ones.
You have?
I've used them up.
Oh, okay, so
I
you
just
do
haven't
want,
placed an order because I was hoping
Okay.
that something was coming, and now I'm very, very
Yeah.
excited that we will have a business card that is more representative of the flavor of
there's
Nelson.
somebody that we should be, just Donna, okay.
You
Just
know
touch
now.
base with Donna if you'd like to have some new business cards, please.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm emailing.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, it's the fourth quarter financial report. Continue to be putting a bow on 2024. I believe in next regular meeting, we will have the accountants come, the auditors coming in. So another month we'll have the auditors. So now we will have my favorite. I love these quarterly updates. So I see Amy's taken the hot seat there. So
Might jump in at any.
Sure, and maybe I'll just give a little preamble, like the mayor was mentioning. Actually, I think it's at our next meeting that the auditors will be coming and presenting their
Isn't it?
audit
Yeah, we're doing
report.
that special meeting then.
Yeah, but we're pretty comfortable at this point in the audit process that the numbers aren't gonna move too much, and it's, I think we did this last time as well, is we call it the quarter four update, but it's primarily the same format. I think there's two statements at the very end of your presentation that will look very close to what you see when the audited statements come out, so we thought maybe we'd share that now, and we have a bit more time to go through a couple of highlights than, than when the auditors are here and present, and their objective is mainly just to share their audit report and findings with you. So, we'll use this opportunity to just go through a couple of things. Looking at those two statements of revenue and expense at the end, if you take out conditional and, those sort of capital type grants, we were at, I think, 99% of budget for revenues and 97% for expenses, so it came in, overall, I think where we wanna be. There's always gonna be some ups and downs, and hydro was a bit of a challenge this year. That's always the toughest one to budget. It's very dependent on external factors that, it's not like your taxation or water sewer fixed rates. It's weather dependent. It's got impacts of storm and power purchases and demand fluctuations and things like that. So that part's a challenge, but for the rest of the operations, I think we kind of landed where we expected to. So yeah, I'll let Amy go through a couple of details.
You'll notice the nice swoosh.
Yes.
All this logo is only on the first slide. Had an old version. So we'll start off with revenue. So I won't talk about every single line item. Of course, if you have some questions, we can jump in. But kind of as we've talked about it throughout the year, don't expect there to be any major surprises for you guys. But I will touch on a few of them on each slide. So sale of services, we see an increase from prior year primarily due to the increase in the resource recovery fees that are sent out in the beginning of the year, as well as the parking meters revenue and additional revenues from the youth center. The sale of services is slightly below budget due to some other revenues, such as the prisoner maintenance and contributions that aren't classified as grants for projects that have carried forward over to the next year. Other revenue is down from last year primarily due to the insurance recovery related to the Nelson Hydro Mill Street project. So we did see an increase last year on that one. And then in the current year, we had some slight decreases in building permits and utility connection charges that we had originally budgeted for, but those were offset with the increase in parking ticket fines this year. Investment income is higher than budgeted, but down from last year. Most of the investment income is generated from reserve investments, so those are allocated back into those appropriate reserves. Additional grants in 2024 were budgeted to include major capital projects such as the Civic Center, NG911, and the Transit Exchange. So that full amount is budgeted for, and obviously we only record in line with what the project is actually completed at. So you'll find a lot of that's just carried forward to the next year. So that's the major difference in that one. Nelson Hydro sales ended with an increase of 6% compared to prior year, and that's due to just a general rate increase, and again, like Chris mentioned, based on actual consumption during the year. This slide, we kept it in there just to be consistent with our other quarterly reports. We find it a bit more helpful during the year because you can see whereabouts you're supposed to be. It doesn't do a great job at showing the relative values of these items. So when we drop down and look at transit versus Nelson Hydro, and when we flip back, you see Nelson Hydro and transit on the right-hand side of that, you can tell the scale is quite different. So when you're over 1% in one field, it's a big dollar value difference. So not too much talking on that one at the end of the year, but we kept it in. If we jump over to expenses, general government, we saw an increase from prior year, mostly due to us shifting away from software being those capital big projects that they used to be, and more operating expenses. We're finding software providers now do annual charges rather than purchasing a software and amortizing it over the years. As well, we came in under budget due to just timing of some larger projects. For example, Anderson Creek and the risk management project and planning. Again, it's just ones that are getting deferred to 2025. And protective services, police ended slightly under budget due to some one-time cost savings. This was offset by the increase in fire protection due to FireSmart, which is all grant funded, the equipment costs and labor increases, including the retro pay and overtime. Transportation services are under budget due to the timing of our teams when we transitioned from parks. In the spring, we went over earlier in the year, and in the fall, we transitioned from parks to public works later than usual, and that's just due to due to weather. So with that decrease in transportation services, we also see the slight increase in recreation and parks. Interest and debt charges. And you can kind of see it more on the next slide, but when the city takes on a debt for 20 years, we lock in one rate for the first 10 and then increments of 5 years. And so 3 of our loans in 2024 renewed for their final 5 years. And so the new interest rates at the end of 2024 were slightly higher than projected. Transit increased from prior year, mainly due to taking on the Kootenay Lakes West operations. Slightly under budget due to the delay of the amalgamation of the new transit operations.
So just on the transit piece too, so if you recall, in part of the agreement and taking that over was that BC Transit was gonna help us fund some of those startup costs and transitional costs. So we did have some funds that were earmarked for helping to bring Kootenay Lake West to our public works yard. So we did get that funding in 2024, and we're gonna access that now for 2025 to do things down at the yard. So we're recommending, or with our auditors, just put that into our building reserve. I think there's 135,000, that will help us sort of pay for that. So it'll go into the building reserve, and we'll use that in 2025 to help us with those costs.
Councillor Lockwood?
So Chris or Amy, the transit user fees don't capture the service fees that the RDCK pays us to run the CUNY West.
On the revenue piece, right? Yeah, that's just coin and tickets and.
Yeah,
those kind
but
of things.
where in this would we be
The other
picking?
grants.
Yeah, it's,
The
would be
unconditional grants.
Conditional grants,
yes,
unconditional,
or in the
Sorry,
conditional,
conditional, yeah.
conditional grants, yeah.
the conditional grants, okay.
We did have now that that's such a large part of, you know, it used to just be the Nelson part, now it's actually funding, you know, a service that's outside of our municipal boundaries. We did have that conversation with the auditors as far as how we might want that to look next year.
Mhm.
And rather than calling it conditional grants, if we wanna call it something else, so it's a little bit more clear,
Mhm.
not just embedded in there, so I think that might be something we look at for next year.
Yeah, like something like
Yeah.
service fees or.
Yeah,
Or,
cause it's not really a grant for us, it's them funding the operations outside of the city, right? So it's just one of those growing pains of taking this on of like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we should change the way we do that, so.
Makes sense.
So again, just looking at the expenses by percentage, so yes, the interest and other debt charges looks like it past the 100%, but when we go back, it is a smaller portion compared. So moving on to some capital, so we've got the capital expenses for 2024 in green, and then the budgeted in the blue line. So as mentioned before, a lot of the capital projects, we budget the full amount, and then any unused portions we carry forward to the next year, so that's most of the differences. In facilities, we made some really good improvement on City Hall. We did the 5th floor, we started on the elevators. We had renovations in the police station related to the new next generation 911 project in the dispatch area. And the Civic Center was a huge part of that, so a big difference in that change from budget to actuals is due to the Civic project that we're carrying over to 2025. In transportation, we had budgeted for the new transit exchange that's just coming underway in 2025 as well. We did, however, make significant progress on the water pathway down at Lakeside, and with over $1 million in our ongoing street maintenance. In information and technology, again, is the next generation 911 that we made good progress, but that's the budgeted amount was the full amount for that, and which is carrying over to 2025. In our water utility, we came well under budget because of the finished water storage project that again is carried forward to 2025. And in Nelson Hydro, the capital expense came in higher than budgeted due to the Mill Street substation insurance recovery.
Councillor Lockwood?
And just a question about so that budgeted amount is in the first year, do you then carry over the full budget amount each year that the project is happening, or will we see next year it just collapse to zero, but then the actual spend will be?
We'd only carry forward the portion that was unused. So the difference between the top of the blue line and the top of the green line.
Okay, so you'll just see a declining blue line as you go until it's flat, and then the expense
it
of that
was-
year.
Yeah, if we didn't take on new projects.
Right.
But that, you know, that essentially, if you think about it as one single project, like for facilities, just to make it easy, think that that's one project, we got about half of it done.
Right.
And then the next, you know, for 2025, we got that top remaining half there. That'll show up again if we didn't take any other projects, and then hopefully, you know, the spend will be right around there. Slightly, yeah.
And we talk about that every year, and we look at it and say, you know, we're budgeting a lot here, we're taking on a lot, are we really gonna be able to accomplish this? And it's not a financing thing, it's a human resources thing, like do we have enough capacity to take this on? And a lot of it's also just flexibility, you know, if you have a certain project in there and for whatever reason it gets stalled, it's nice to have the flexibility to be able to pivot to something else and say, okay, well, let's get this one done then. So that's maybe one of the reasons why we got a little bit more in there than we were actually able to accomplish, but over the course of 5 years, we will tackle it all, it's just kind of the timing of it. We don't all get it done in 1 year.
And if I may follow up, this is, I'm assuming, accounting best practice? Or is there an ideal that you would love to account for? Like if you have perfect information, you would say, you wouldn't budget the entire project, you would say, you can only do 30% of the project, so only budget 30%?
Yeah, that would be ideal.
That would be the ideal, but it's just not possible, so you budget the whole amount.
We could probably get better.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think that probably part of that is, that would then introduce a further sort of, not complication, but complexity to bringing the budget to council, cause then we're gonna be saying, well, yeah, we wanna do this project, but we'll only hit maybe 30%.
Right.
But then something happens and it's like, oh, actually, we can like bite off like 70% of this. Oh, we gotta go back to council and talk to them, because we gotta do a budget adjustment, right?
It's that flexibility piece that's nice to have, yeah. And it doesn't impact taxation at all. It's not something that, we're overtaxing for it. It's really just a work plan, and if we can accomplish it, fantastic. And if we're not able to and we shift to something else, then we have that ability. And
It doesn't impact investments, like would you say, given that you budget, then you have to keep it in some sort of short-term or easy to access account as opposed to some sort of long-term higher interest?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and if you know that you're not gonna need that money for another 5 years, you can lock it into a different investment vehicle than you would if you need it to be liquid, right? I mean, we do have a balance of some that's in a short-term high interest savings account, and then more that's in longer term, high in bonds, like actual owning, bond instruments, and some that are in pooled investment funds. So we have a pretty good mix, but we could tighten that up if we had it's all part of the asset management piece too, right? When we get better at that, then we'll be able to look at like, hey, we're gonna need $5 million in 5 years' time, but we won't need it for 5 years, so let's lock that in. So
Let's look at for 5, get higher interest.
Councillor Payne?
Just following along the same thought process. When I look at this information, I'm thinking there's a goal to communicate something specific. I don't think we're hitting it with the way we're looking at it right now. So I'm trying to understand what the value is. I understand the barriers to showing it in a different way, but I guess that's just my question. What is the value in showing it to us this way?
Mhm.
So it's that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think
Every slide should communicate, every piece of data should communicate a message or something that not only we need to understand, but if the general population is looking at this.
I think it feeds into the next slide.
Okay.
When you get the financial statements and you see where we're at for reserve balances, we budget to use a certain portion of reserves. For the most part, our reserve balances are much higher, ending the year much higher than where we projected. What's the reason for that? It's because of that capital piece that we just saw, that we had budgeted to pull a certain amount from reserves to pay for capital projects. Now our reserve balance has gone up, which is not a bad thing, but the reason is because we were having some of those capital projects that are just pushed forward to the next year.
And I would also add, I think that, the slide before is saying what the commitment to the capital that, the council has committed to those projects. So if you wanna flip back, so you have committed $9 million to facilities, and I think it's important to identify what that commitment is, where we are with that commitment. So I think that would be the power, so it probably needs some explanation. And we spend, as you know, we spend a fair amount of time in that budget year to really, nail down that you guys, council's comfortable with these projects we're doing. And I think probably two things, making sure that it's clear that, the budget amount is really the committed amount. Here's where we're at in terms of delivering on that. I think really is what this slide is showing.
Okay.
So like Chris said, it kind of ties into our ending reserve balances. So for hydro capital, it's lower than budgeted, partially because Nelson Hydro had originally budgeted to have borrowing proceeds in 2024, which didn't end up occurring. So that brought down the reserve slightly, as well as pulling more from reserves for those Mill Street capital projects that went over slightly. Water capital reserve is higher than budgeted, primarily due to the finished water storage that's been postponed to 2025. Sewer capital reserve is in line with budget as we build up the reserve for the STP replacement. And general reserves are higher than budgeted, primarily due to the other capital projects that originally budgeted for the full amounts, ended up carrying those forward to future years. Lastly, accumulated surplus was budgeted to pull roughly 600,000 from it for one-time expenses, and we ended up 320,000.
Next slide.
We're actually going to end it there, but if you have questions on the next slide.
You don't have another slide? I have.
We have 2 more slides.
Yeah, so those were ones that we sort of touched on with the graphs.
Yeah.
There, we won't go through each line of these, but for sure, if you have questions or anything on that.
Yeah, through the chair. I forget where the hydro dividend lives in there.
Yeah, so it doesn't actually show, these are our overall Nelson, so
Yeah.
the hydro dividend is a transfer from one department to the other, so it doesn't, it's not an external revenue source. Like, we are Nelson Hydro as we are the city, so it doesn't come from a outside source, it comes internally. So you won't see, you know, a revenue line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Any questions on this slide, or you wanna flip up the last one?
So Chris, just in terms of Nelson Hydro, so it really is the fallout of, so we will, there's revenues and their expenses, and then there's a net amount, which, you know, I know in the past, we've had people say, well, if you look at those differences, you know, there's this huge profit. However, that's going into those capital projects and reserves, et cetera. So really that, you know, the difference between those revenues and expenses are really what's ultimately going into those capital reserves, right?
It's a huge part of municipal operations in general is the capital piece. And I know that when we show our annual report and there's always a surplus there, and that sometimes gets picked up by folks and say like, hey, City of Nelson had a, you know, $15 million surplus, but that then goes into a capital program that, you know, we added 15 million in capital assets in 2024. So that's how it gets funded. So it's a bit challenging to explain to folks when you just look at the face of the statements. It's one of the drawbacks of this reporting structure, I suppose. You have revenue minus expenses and you got a surplus that then goes into a capital program, but.
Is it possible, probably not the normal way to do it, but to have a line that's like transferred to reserves and then it all balances to zero and everybody's like, oh, it's zero.
Yeah.
It's not the way that it's done. Is it ever done that way?
Well, there's other pages on the statements. I just don't know if people, you know, then you flip forward to, you know, the changes in net financial assets, and then that's where you see, oh, you got a surplus of 10.8 million, but you added, you know, 16.8 million in assets. So then that's where, I don't know if people always look that far.
Right.
So.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that is, as you know, the way we budget. It's just unfortunately, that's not how we have to report.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Councilor Woodward?
Thank you. I was wondering about, you know, we've been talking about some possibility of some fairly large loans. Like I'm thinking about the
Sewage treatment plant.
sewage, yeah, I was gonna say sewage treatment plant. But when we take out a loan, we have debt. And then we have like, so let's say an increase in revenue 1 year. We have this debt. How do you square that away that we have positive money, but we also have negative money, and to, you know, do we just pay off if we have positive money like that extra, do we start tackling those loans earlier, or cause we have a lot of like 20-year loan repayment plans and you pay a lot of interest, and I'm just wondering what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, you lock those in for 20 years with a set annual amount that is the repayment, you know, it's X amount per year. And that's locked in for 10 years, so then you just budget accordingly to be able to pay that amount of interest and principal each year for the next 10 years. If it's in a, you know, wastewater utility, then it's being recovered from those fees that we charge for water and wastewater.
But is there an advantage to paying it off early?
Well, you couldn't with
You can't.
MFA loans, you can't pay them
Okay,
off.
that's what I need to know,
Yeah.
okay, so you can't like with your mortgage,
No
Yeah.
one time a
prepayment
year or
privileges.
something, you can pay off more, right, but you can't do that.
Cause essentially MFA is going out and issuing bonds, and so they're out in the market. And so they're locked in for, you know, 10 years, so we need to be locked in as well.
Thank you, thanks for the clarification.
Just keep in mind, as I always say, is that we get a better rate than if we had to go to a
Oh, yeah,
commercial bank for our borrowings, so.
without a doubt.
I mean, that's something to always keep in mind too, is that, cause people look at those debt payments and, you know, they look, like this year when they redid the recreation center, our loan there for that, and it went up considerably. Well, that's just the reality of, so that if you had to go out and redo your mortgage, the amount went up. We don't, you know, we still have to work in the global economy, but in terms of it going up, it still went up at a better rate than had we gone out to a commercial bank to try to finish off that debt that we have there at the pool and the new ice rink, so.
That's great, thank you.
Any further questions? Is there another slide there that anybody wanted? That's it, that was the last one.
Yeah.
Okay. And any further questions, anybody? Okay. Well,
Thank you, Chris, thank you, Amy.
thank you for the fourth quarter update, and we'll look forward to, in 2 weeks' time, listening to the auditor.
I have a question that's kind of coming up just with the rec study and curiosities about new facilities and those sorts of things. And my curiosity is where, like when we own these buildings, like this building, so where the operations for the building itself is in general government, but then any of the fixes are in capital improvements, is that correct?
So it depends on the building, so like
Okay,
this building will be in general government.
Yeah.
And so, you know, minor repairs and maintenance will be an operating expense,
Yeah.
but then if we go do like the elevators, for example, then that, you'll see that in the capital budget. That's a bigger project that will have a life that extends beyond the current life or current year, so that'll be a capital project. If it's
like
you
what
know,
about the youth center, for example?
yeah, so then those would be in your parks and recreation, those operating expenses as far as that, those buildings. So they're not
Unless it's a big project, like we're gonna redo the whole floor.
totally, yeah.
Okay, interesting, thanks.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, why we need to refine that asset management, so we should know what we need to spend on this building over the next 10 years, right? And on the youth center and on the police and all those, so you know what that commitment, once you own a asset, what is the, you know, commitment to maintain that asset. And unfortunately, for the recreation assets, they were allowed to, over a number of years, we didn't put a lot of money into them, and then obviously the structural challenges on those buildings were completely unknown, so now we have, you know, this unexpected, it wasn't, you know, you're not budgeting, you know, assuming that the trusses are not to code, you're yes, you need to replace a roof, and yes, you need to replace a mechanical system, but when we get hit with those unexpected things, then that just adds a whole layer to it.
And how do the lease agreements intersect with those like operating and capital expenses?
So all we really do, so most of our leases now cover, make the tenant responsible for the basic O&M costs, the operating, you know, the heat and water and sewer and those sorts of things. And there's a small amount of profit there that we use for general maintenance, so there's really no money coming from a tenant into capital on those buildings.
And the lease fees that we charge the recreational groups are less than market rate, right?
Oh, way less.
Yeah, so we aren't recovering, so as an example for the recreation engagement piece, there's that line item that shows how much City of Nelson residents pay for the civic center and civic arena, you know, that extra, I think, $37.
27,
27?
37 maybe?
37.
37,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there anyways. And that, you know, that, and it was stated, that did not include that capital, right? So that's, you know, that takes, I think what we did is, you know, Chris and his team looked at costs over the last 5 years, took out the revenue from the commission that runs it from October till March or whatever. And then those were the costs aggregated, divided by, you know, and then the math was done on that. So that did not include the major capital upgrades that have occurred. So to Kevin's point, you know, as we develop our asset management, we'll be able to better project those, and that number, I mean, realistically just goes up, right? So then we'll know what we need to be saving to replace the major components of those buildings.
Is there a model in, say, the NMAG or the Capitol Theatre that could be emulated to rec, or is that just too different because of the operating agencies?
You know, I think in the ideal world,
Yeah.
we would lease those buildings to the regional district and under similar that we do for other agencies, and they would lease them, pay reasonable lease fees, all of us, that would help pay for that ongoing capital, would build reserves, etc., would pay the operating costs. So right now, unfortunately, it's, you know, it's us. You know, there's no third party to lease it to you. We wouldn't be leasing it to, you know, I think it would be unlikely that you could, you know, almost all recreation and culture is subsidized by local governments, right? So you would not, you know, if you wanted to maintain those services, you just can't charge a fee high enough to pay for the capital on those books or, you know, on those buildings. Sometimes you're even subsidizing the operating side of it. And that's not different from facilities to playing fields. We don't recoup the, you know, all the maintenance costs on a playing field either.
Right. Thanks.
Councillor Page.
I wanna riff off.
I heard somebody on CBC say riff. Like they were interviewing two people and somebody said, I'm gonna riff off of that. And I was like, we do that too.
Nelson sets the tone. It occurs to me as we kind of develop the principles underneath our asset management plan that whether or not we ever obtain a rural consent to get to a side where there's that contribution that's often spoke to, maybe there's an opportunity to look at what work has been done on the fees and charges bylaw on the RDCK side to identify subsidization categories and principles of when and where, much like we do with youth or seniors, and create some parallel policies that align with that on the city side. Understand that, you know, if we determined we were going to do a subsidization, like is it nonprofit, is it private, what are the qualification factors, and look at what the RDCK has done to create that mirror on our side. And do a phased implementation over quite a number of years to reach some sort of parity in terms of what a lease should be to capture both the principle and the desire that we do subsidize some of these groups and that they persist, and sometimes even reaching as far as into operations. But at other times that we're identifying not only our known asset liability issues, but that those unknowns, because even the unknowns are somewhat known in that you know they'll show up. And I just wonder if we did that over a couple of years and kind of got into a place where we had parallel policy, that it might make it even easier for future council and board to determine some sort of overlap and merger. Because we'll have already done the work to kind of bring things into parity, because right now the inequity of how those things are even adjusted for makes a conversation somewhat difficult to broach, because you might be in a place after the Civic Center where it's like, oh, we've done all this work, it's, you know, this is a really great spot for someone else to pick up, but those other buildings present that other challenge. But it could be work we took on to look at our partners and say, what are some learnings we could bring over on our side, and then the user groups have something similar to expect in terms of how they're treated. But I also know, like, anyway, I don't wanna ramble on too long, but that's the lines of my thinking.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we have to understand our costs, and especially the capital side of it. And right now, just so everyone's clear, you know, we do have a different rate for nonprofit versus profit. So we're 5%, I think, of assessed value for not-for-profit and 9% for private. So we are leasing at different rates when depending on who the user is. But that's as sophisticated as we've been for ever since I've been here.
So if you were to pick up what was going on there, you'd separate that into all adult and youth within those categories to get you up to the 4. And those are the big differentials: is nonprofit youth, nonprofit adults, and private.
We don't have too many that we rent to individual, like it's to a, you know, like gymnastics, for example, who they then have as their participants, whether they're youth or adults, that's sort of their
Mixed.
yeah, we're leasing it to them as an organization, so.
Yeah, so we've taken quite a different model. We lease to a organization that does the registration and all that management of the people in that building, which is a low cost delivery model. The RD is much more hands-on in terms of their program, so it's a completely different approach and has cost implications on what approach you take.
If there's any further questions, I'm just being a bit sensitive to the time, and I'm hoping that we can get the city manager's report in if we've got and then have enough time to get to dinner, because we are out of the office tonight.
Summary, how would you describe the year?
I think fairly, you know, despite a few hiccups and things that I think we've talked about throughout the year, I mean, it's not uncommon for those things to happen. I think we landed in a pretty good place. And yeah. I was working on some comparables and things with other municipalities to sort of find a peer group and see where we landed, and came up with a few things, but I think it's a little bit too early to share that with all of you, and I knew we wouldn't have a lot of time today, but it might be something worth exploring in a future meeting.
Did you look at Kenora?
Kate's favorite town.
Our sister city, our Canadian sister city. Maybe we should reach
It's
out.
only BC communities I was looking at. So.
Seems.
Okay, so thank you for the financial update, and so then I'm gonna move on to item 8, and we'll see how far we get here. So, Evan.
Okay, I will be relatively quick. Speaking of the Civic Center, we are scheduled to hopefully be out of the theater space by the end of this month. Some just final work to do, including tearing down a lot of scaffolding in that building, or that part of that building. And then, you know, so they're dealing with life safety issues, getting the fire alarm verified, putting some level of lighting in there so it's safe to be in that building, and then really leaving it at a place where the Nelson Civic Theatre Society can take over. So they've asked us not to put the screen back up, not put the speakers back up, things like that. So we're just gonna be really clear with them. This is where we're leaving the building. This is what you're going to receive. So we're trying to organize a meeting with the Civic Theatre Society. They have given us a preliminary Class C estimate. They're not they weren't very far advanced in their drawings at that stage, so they're refining the drawings and we're hoping that we will have their refined budget that's based on more refined drawings, hopefully by the end of the month, so that we can sit down with them, including the construction manager, and just be clear on funding they have secured and what they can achieve with that level of funding. That is been clearly communicated to them that ultimately we need to be satisfied that they have capacity to complete the project that they're going to start. We're not going to say, at least at a staff level, that we'll leave $1 million hole and we all fundraise for that. We've said no, you need to have a project that you can complete. So that's in terms of the other side of the building where the dance umbrella has been. Took us a while to get the engineering for the windows complete, so that's delayed the window order. Window orders are now 12 weeks, so we're still probably 3 to 4 months before we want the building completed. So that, the windows definitely trying to accommodate the heritage, definitely put that side of it quite far behind. Housing projects, everyone's aware that the Sheriff Nelson project will be coming forward for public hearing, consideration of third and adoption or third and fourth readings on April 16th. The Nelson Cares building at Cedar and Front Street, they are hoping to come, I believe, around May, at the May 6th, as just an update of that project. We're going to add this additional step so council has a chance to hear from the proponent and Makola and ask those questions that you were able to ask with the share project before we put that bylaw in front of you, so we're gonna add that step in there. That one's tight, and we're, ultimately the RD needs to make some decisions there. What we're planning to do is actually invite the directors to that May 6th meeting so that everyone can be at one meeting and hear the same thing instead of having council hear it at one and the rec commission hear it at another one. So I'm not sure if we've I think we're still finalizing that date, but we need to get that out soon to our partners there.
Well, and
Councillor Page. Sorry, and then Councillor Woodward.
perhaps that's a place for like the 17th of April, because maybe that's a presentation Makola can put in.
They're not, they won't be available.
Not available
They won't
then?
be prepared by the 17th of
Yeah,
April.
it's just like if they're gonna, if it's a board decision, if they came forward to the board as a presentation on
Yeah, I don't think
you weren't ready yet.
I don't think they're gonna be ready, so they recognize it has to go ultimately to the board. So, and I don't know, Councillor Page, do you feel that they should present to the board, or is it the rec commission that?
But the decision around that will have to go to the whole board.
No, yeah, we recognize that.
But it'll be on recommendation from rec, it won't need to be, but this is also a spot where two organizations are working together and we're having some kind of task-arc question conversations, but
Would the rec commission would have to have some kind of motion regarding taking on that additional facility though?
we're gonna have those discussions around. So it looks like.
So there's like that piece.
There's many steps.
Yeah.
And even that has to go to the board probably, so.
I just wanted to have an inquiry about building costs, construction costs. Cause it's been pretty steep increase. Is that still happening? Are we still in this very steep increase
I
not
think-
maybe not year over year, but
No, I think well, we don't know what happens with tariffs, right? So, putting that
put that aside, bracket that out
you
for a
know,
moment.
those significant pricing increases are in the market, and they've been in the market for the last couple of years. You know, both these projects and the Chamber project and BC Builds project, you know, the building costs are substantial.
So I
All
think
these projects are, they're challenging.
I think I saw one of the presentations, like 30% overage was budgeted in to their projects, to these projects. I think that's what I saw. but-
That's their, I mean, the whole thing, we have to keep in mind that that's their work that they have to do with, the proponent
Yeah,
needs to deal with their costs.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, we've been in this very challenging building situation for quite a few years now, and I'm just wondering if it's leveling off, but now with what's happening in the States, I mean, who knows now, right? Okay, thank you.
And
Who knows?
Who knows?
last housing project, the Chamber project, the BC Builds project, you saw there's an item on tonight's agenda around improvement bylaw. They are, they need this piece in place, they're waiting on environmental, which they were supposed to, I think, make a decision today on that.
Gosh, I think it was like April 1st, we thought that was gonna be April's Fool joke.
So they had to appeal a decision by environment on their application, and the consultants at least thought that they would be successful. That's, which I think we all knew the environmental ultimately was going to be the challenge on that project. Again, they've seen a fair price escalation, and what we're hearing from Macola for these two, the two projects that they're leading, and what we're hearing from the Chamber on that project they're leading, building costs seem to be pretty consistent, regardless of the delivery method. I think people know that Chamber project is prefab construction project. Each have their unique challenges. That one down there is because the flood risk down there, they have to build this on this concrete platform, and obviously the concrete is not inexpensive in our region, so that adds the cost pressure on that one. But yeah, we're seeing sort of that consistent sort of estimates across them, so.
Thank you.
So that's where we're at with those housing projects. Just to let you know, we are moving forward on a number of hires that were included in the capital plan, including the safety coordinator, Nelson Hydro and the other departments meeting to look at what the needs are there. That position will initially focus mostly on Nelson Hydro and addressing their safety concerns, but we'll be advertising that fairly shortly. Today?
Yeah.
Okay. On the fire side, we are just making an offer to someone that has worked on a temporary basis for us, and we'll start as a fourth class firefighter, and they, Jeff is getting out the other postings for the second firefighter, so those are in play, and he's also working on that deputy position that we want to advertise that in this year, so we can recruit for next year. Jeff is working on the chief is working on the fire master plan, the implementation plan, so you should see that shortly. We did apply for round 2 of the EDMA funding, the Emergency Disaster
Management Act.
Funding for the Truth and Reconciliation, working with our Indigenous population on that, so the RV is definitely behind. They haven't even really started round 1. We had to apply for round 2 now. We will also be asking for that to be delayed a year. That is allowed under the program. I was down at the Public Works and Nelson Hydro shops today, and got a tour of the progress on the new offices down there, so that will make a big difference down there. So it's creating offices both for our transit management group and for our Nelson Hydro group. We have people working in hallways, so we were bursting at the seams there. And the 5th floor, we're looking at how do we free up as much space up there to lease that generate revenue, so we'll be moving some staff around to accommodate that. We have some of our staff temporarily up there while renovation goes on, so I think that's all I had.
Councillor Payne.
A couple of questions, but I'll start with, what's the timeline for moving, like, are all the buses down at Works now?
Yes.
Or they are, okay,
Yeah.
it sort of looked like it when I
Yeah.
drove the other day, but I saw the notice about the parking
Parking shift,
shifting
yeah.
for everybody. Okay, so that's done. I did actually run into a librarian on my walk down who noted that there hasn't been much, if any, activity on Victoria Street for the last 7 to 10 days, maybe longer. Is there any update that we can? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's
jumping
fine.
the gun there.
That's okay.
There was just one other thing that I think that I have for the city manager in the minutes that we looked at, the February 4th minute. You referred to the Globe and Mail article, which I went and read, and it reiterated what we know is that we don't have a method of making e-bike loans available to renters. Are we making any progress on that? Is that a goal that we have to be able to meet that need? Because I know that the fund that Saanich got access to, there's no money left in that right now.
Yeah, they received a grant for that. I know we've pursued grants in the past, and Chris, if you have anything, we can find out. I know they keep their eye open for
Unknown caller.
I have an idea. I don't know why that, would it be possible to have as a part of a tenancy agreement attached so that the renter could get the bike? Would that be something, I mean, that would be something between the tenant and the owner, but
yeah, the owner would have
Yeah,
to
then the
take
owner
out
could-
the loan.
but then you can get that notarized. It's
Yeah,
not
the owner could
impossible.
do that right now.
Exactly.
That's the way you
Yeah, it's not
want it to do it.
impossible.
But I think it's interesting with, our climate goals and how e-bikes have really changed the opportunities for people to move around our mountainous community. That, yeah, we're missing a really big piece there on not having that be available. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think, yeah, I think that was a great article. Thanks for referring it to us. It was nice to see us on there. Okay.
I can do it.
In 5 minutes?
Sure.
Do it.
Okay,
Okay.
sure. You know what, I know you can do it. It's the other 6 people in the room. I'm
I'll
not sure.
wait till after 2.
I blame Councillor Pinheiro.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so really quickly, just starting with operations, so we're to that time of the month. Good news for the patios in the city. They will be able to mobilize the site April 15th. Our field crews have done a wonderful job to get after it. One of the things that has sort of, taken a back seat for environmental reasons are our fields. Right now, they're a very soupy, spongy mess. So we can't get any vehicles on them. That's allowed our crews to really focus up there too. So we have a commitment for the fields to be April 15th available. That will likely be a few days delayed, looking at the following weekend type thing. So Charlie's chatting with all the users for those fields to let them know it's just too saturated right now to do any of the work required, fertilize, aerate, anything like that. Kootenay Street, the water main, we have about another 4 weeks of work there. The water main is in. Now we'll be doing all the connections for that. Again, that's a project that we looked to do last year. It's actually interesting in that graph that we saw where there was the underspend in transit and also underspend in waterworks. It's interesting because Transit, it's BC Transit project, they didn't start their project last year, but that delayed our start on Kootenai Street, and that's why we're doing it this year. So sometimes those not hitting the full amount of the budget is totally out of our hands. So that was an interesting example of that. As far as other things looking at here, I would just say that on the staff hiring piece, we have hired our operations supervisor position, which is approved in the budget and financial plan. Paul Kelly, in-house hire, came from the union side, came into a temporary role at the end of January and has been incredibly successful. So really great news down there. Really happy for Paul. From Transit Exchange, it has been very quiet there for the last week or so, or a couple longer, and that is, so it's BC Transit project. Their engineering design team is correcting some issues that were identified for that project. So that is on them, they're working it out. I understand that the Mar West is the contractor there. They got the new plans in their hands today that will hopefully be able to get at work ASAP as soon as they proof it and say, yes, this works. So.
Do we have a revised completion date then?
We lost about a week there, so I think it's always been kind of the end of June, and then that had a bit of contingency on it, so I wouldn't imagine that it shifts too much there.
Okay, thank you.
Other items, for those of you that might be down there tomorrow, starting at 3:30, the bridge going across to Public Works will be getting some repairs, so that's just in case you hear from anybody. It's not being closed, but there might be delays as people are on there working, just repairing the railings. As well, another item, the Ladybird, hoping that the boat will be in early June, the Ladybird building. So continuing to work on refinements with the engineering design team to ensure that it is meeting the strict requirements of the museum grade. Very much looking to get the boat in there and having that building fully functioning.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So I think one of the issues we had was when it was like in the middle of the summer,
Yes.
40 degrees. So
Yes.
we're there, that's in the contingency of that building be able to handle.
Well, we've been very clear with the people who designed the building that committed to say that this would work, that we expect them to stay committed to this project through a summer as well.
Okay.
So we went through a winter with really cold periods, we did pretty good. Now we gotta see how it performs in the summer.
Thank you.
Okay. Multi-use pathway staying in that area of town. The tram poles will be installed sometime in late April, early May. Landscaping done after that, so we're replacing the tram poles. We need lights in there, and so we replaced the tram poles as well, which we had to get engineered because they have the cantilever off of there to also provide the lighting, just so there wouldn't be poles everywhere. Landscaping will be done once that's complete, just because they'll sort of rip everything up. And then finally, just speaking to generally the update around the vulnerable population, the unhoused community. So for the last couple of months, we've been having a bit of a strategy group that meets every couple of weeks. And consists of ourselves, Nelson Cares, Street Outreach, Police, Fire, Bylaw. And that is, really focusing on that housing first approach. How do we support it? How do we support the initiatives? To make sure that the NSI is successful with their supportive housing. How do we prepare the community for, the additional supportive housing that's coming up? So there's been a lot that we've heard about stepping stones and the challenges that have happened out there. So we've had a number of discussions with Nelson Cares in particular about that, and Street Outreach, of course, for their knowledge. A lot of the information's been around what is now an inhalation tent that has been put in the backyard there. They installed that in late December, and just to provide some insight into that, there's one out at North Shore Inn as well. It's been there since they opened it up during our tour. They showed us that. Two, with the tent, they have really strict guidelines on there, so 2 people can use it at a time. There's a 30-minute time limit, and this was all in response to the number of calls that they were experiencing for this. And in fact, one of the members of the community actually died in the shelter hiding to use drugs, right? So that's was really the sort of tipped over the scales to they just had to do that. So that is there. It's being there's tight rules around that, and in general they've been the shelter itself has been doing everything they can to adhere to the rules that they've agreed on with the community, such as curfews and making sure that problematic people aren't allowed in. That creates a lot of issues that we've seen and the police see and that the neighbors certainly experience, is those problematic people get turned away, or if they come too late in the night and they get turned away, then they're still in the neighborhood. So while you can have a curfew, if people still come and knocking at the door because they just can't comprehend that it's maybe past the time that they should be there, then they're out in the public in that area. And so one of the things that we've been discussing with Nelson Cares is, it's become clear that, the location of the shelter is likely untenable, right? It's never going to really work out the way that they want it to. So apparently Nelson Cares has agrees with that assessment. Their board has been discussing, saying that they would be open to other options. So and with that, I'll just say that their new ED has started, and Kevin and I will be meeting with them soon. It's getting set up by Maddie here. So
Just to make sure everyone's clear on the inhalation site, on that site, it is only for residents of the shelter. It's not for
not open use,
that are not staying at the shelter. So it's not the one that was proposed before was community based. This is strictly for shelter customers or shelter residents.
Councillor Payne.
I just can't recall, when did the shelter open there? Has it been there 10 or 12 years now?
16.
Yeah.
16.
Yeah.
So it's been there for 16 years.
Sorry.
No, I think it.
It's 2020 maybe. Yeah, I'm walking.
No, it's not 2020.
Is it?
No.
Okay. Let me find out.
It's 10 or 12, I think.
Yeah, it's at least 10 years, yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's changed significantly.
Sorry, I'm just gonna let her finish asking a question. She made a comment.
I'm just trying to understand, we're trying to solve a problem that arose because of another situation by, we had many years of not having this issue in the neighborhood, or was it always there and we just never heard of it?
I think the nature of the, the toxic drugs.
Yes,
and
it's the toxic drugs,
think
so
all
it's
of
not the location of the shelter,
I think it's
the toxic drug.
Well, and I think as we've talked about in the thing, they had, one incident where, someone clearly had a psychotic event and it took 4 hours to get this person out of it. You can never manage that, right? If that.
But that's not what a shelter's for.
Well, you're dealing with people that are with, can have a psychotic event, right? And they're a shelter customer or client or before, so you can't prevent that. There's no way that you can manage those ones, right?
That's what complex care is for.
Right, so
So that's our challenge.
But I
To
don't think
me,
you
I'm just interested to understand the nature of this, very complex issue. The shelter was operating for quite a number of years for the purpose for which it was designed, and then something shifted in the drug supply, and that has changed the situation. But many of those solutions are now coming forward. So I'm interested in hearing more about an alternate location, but it feels a little bit to be like throwing the baby out with the bathwater until we understand better what the ripple effect of two supportive housing sites and wherever complex care is gonna fit into this, as well as what the BC government is going to bring forward for, recovery and the other word that I can't remember right now.
Those are all great things, and we're not the driver of this
Yeah, I get it.
process. It's not city council saying you're moving. This is a process that the people that actually run the shelter are engaged with. So I think there's a lot more work that will be coming ahead. You see,
We gotta.
yeah, we have to go. Councillor Page. Rickett?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to
Right.
Yeah, we need to get the cricket thing straightened out.
We gotta go, sure.
Okay,
Need a motion to recess?
yes, please. Councillor Woodward, seconded by
Page.
Councillor Page. All those in favor of eating, and that carries.
Yeah.
Walked to class and there was a sign on the door that class is canceled. So you're not getting an email in the morning.
No, you just,
You
yeah.
just showed up. You're like, oh, okay.
It's 7 o'clock.
It's funny how you
Radio, sometimes you get lucky with the
Okay.
radio.
Ceremony?
Okay, so we're ready to go.
Too many.
And if I could have a motion to reconvene, moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Tate. All those in favor, and that carries. So, just so that we don't end up having really long council reports at the committee of the whole, which is going to be a very busy day in 2 weeks, I'm going to allow the first 10 minutes for council reports just to finish off our pre-break agenda. So, councillors? Nobody's got anything? Councillor Woodward, then Councillor Payne.
So as the city rep to the chamber board, I went to the chamber AGM. A few people here, and it was a lovely event at Prestige, and there was some turnover on the board, some new people got elected. And they gave their financials and they seem to be doing well, it's stable. It was just a really neat event. I had some great conversations with business people, talking about of course, the challenges of operating under these conditions, this uncertainty that's happening. But generally, it felt like the business community is well represented and organized and talking to each other, and so I'm looking forward to another year on the board if that all works out. It was good. It was a good event.
Great, thank you. Councillor Payne.
So on March 22nd, it was Earth Hour, and Ontario Hydro, wow. Nelson Hydro asked us to see if we could reduce our electricity usage between 6 and 7, which is part of the peak hour period that's so important to establishing the costs for the electricity that we buy from Fortis. And Nelson came through, there were some weather factors that helped with that, with a 17% decrease. So congratulations everyone out there who turned off their lights, didn't run their dishwasher or washing machine or any other high draw devices at that point in time. And who knows what we can do next year. 3 citizens, 3 residents are Nelson Hydro customers, I guess you could be anywhere in that area, did win a $100 credit on their bill as a result of their participation. I was at the Rec Campus update when they brought back, I didn't know that anyone else raised their hand to talk about this, so I'll just mention that I was glad to be there. There was a good crowd, not overwhelming, and it was really, really interesting to see some of the financial data that they presented. The current request for more information is up until, survey is up until what's the date?
I believe the 17th.
17th. So if you want to take a look at that information showing some different financial scenarios and give your input, it's probably a good opportunity for you to understand a little bit more about what recreational facilities have cost us in the past and cost in the future as we move forward down that track. And I'll just mention one other thing. On Saturday, I attended the SIP Talks, which is an event that the Canadian Federation of University Women hold, again, down at the Prestige. It's a lovely event. They generally do it about every 3 years, and they showcase 7 absolutely incredible women in our community who all speak for 15 minutes and showcase a little bit about what they feel is important. I would say personally for a meaningful life and how they have come to making the contributions that they have to our community. So it was really well attended. It is a bit of a fundraiser because they do give out scholarships to young women going on to post-secondary. and a couple of those scholarship winners spoke at the event. One sent in by video, and the other one spoke in person there, so it was really gratifying to see that. Very exciting event. I would definitely encourage anyone when they have the next one in 3 years to attend, and there were lots of men and women that witnessed that. That was just a few things on my fun week that I was privileged to go to and see what an amazing town we live in. Oh, and Councillor Woodward didn't mention, or maybe the mayor was gonna talk about the fact that the OCP committee had their final meeting on Monday. None of us could believe that had been a 2-year process. That is just coming to the final phases where the second draft will be tightened up just a little bit and then presented to council for the final approval and adoption. That's it. Did have a housing meeting in there, but that stuff's available online.
Councillor Page.
I just have a few things. So thanks for attending the public engagement on recreation. Just the correction is, and it's mine, is the survey's out till the 18th. And I really encourage everybody to go to engage.rdck.bc.ca to go and see what the outcomes were of the first detailed survey. There was lots of interesting pieces in how people use facilities, how they envision using them into the future, and also their appetite for consideration of some sort of tax increase, either to support the existing facilities or conceive of new ones. But the really big takeaway is we're asking people to look at that report, kind of do a truth check with them, a gut check with themselves, and let us know, is it hitting the mark? Does it make sense? Do these numbers make sense? And what could be missing? What are the insights that the public has on that final opportunity to engage with the process? And there's, of course, for those that are really interested, there's lots of specific details around what the responses were, so you can really dig in and see what was said. Kind of covered this last time, but we finalized the budget at the last RDCK board meeting, and we landed at a 7.89% tax increase for the city of Nelson across our services. That's basically where things land. I think I did cover the last time some of the areas we're looking to improve cost effectiveness and efficiency, which is continuing down that train of getting resource recovery in a place where it's not driving costs. Some of the organics waste capital costs will be coming off in future years here, and so won't be carried into the future. And we're going to be embarking on a systems efficiency study across general admin and rural admin, and looking for opportunities to see where roles and alignments can shift to hopefully find some new opportunities for efficiency across the organization. So some good focus in the work plan for this year.
Anybody else?
I had a question for Payne, if I could.
Okay.
I did take an opportunity to check in on the virtual option for the housing committee. BC Housing have been talking about a rolling intake for future housing calls, and I haven't been at all those tables up until that point, so I was curious, especially as we look at some of these projects, how that potentially would impact the ability to take time and consideration on some of these things.
When he was talking about a rolling intake, he was talking about over a finite period. So there, he was talking about once it opens up, it's not like you need to be through the door that day,
Yeah.
but over he said 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
They hadn't determined what the actual time period was gonna be, but it wasn't first past the post, I guess, is how I had understood that.
Okay, so like a larger opening window
Yep.
for, okay.
My understanding is it's usually at least 90 days. Councillor Tate.
Thanks. I'll rec tomorrow, so always sitting at the rec table. Still sitting at the ENCO subcommittee for the report card on homelessness, and that's coming along really well. First draft kind of went through the group yesterday, and I think it'll be released in a few weeks, they're looking to combine a little bit with Jamie Jones's event, so that's going well. Yesterday was the International Day for Trans Visibility. So yay for all of our trans community members who exist now and have always existed. Happy to participate in those events. And that is it for me for now, until I'll rec tomorrow.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Tate. So, Councillor Payne hit on most of the things that I attended in the last couple of weeks. I did forego the chamber event, apologies to my chamber colleagues in the back of the room, to make sure I attended both the recreation sessions. The one at Tagham Hall that Councillor Payne and I were at was a bit smaller, but no less filled with questions about what we heard document. So I would agree with everybody that make sure you take the opportunity to go back into the RDCK pages and participate in giving some additional feedback. And just I'm trying to do a kind of a bit of a go forward bit, is that only because the chamber is also here, is that next week on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, you guys are doing breakfasts for the energy efficiency and cost saving for small businesses, and I believe it, do I have that right? ED.
Energy savings workshop. Does
Yeah.
happen to be at breakfast time.
Yes. Well, breakfast is always like, I offered cake at 4:00 and you know what, they all showed up. So it works, the food part works, so.
Yeah, there's various sectors, retail, beverage, small business manufacturing, office. So those are going all next, or 3 days.
Yes,
next
3
week.
days, 8th, 9th, and 10th. I did get I was more trying to get the dates right. 9th, 10th, and 11th.
That's
So
right.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Good update on them so far.
Yeah, so that's gonna be great for people to drop in there when they get a chance. And kudos again for your work in the ICI organic bin pilot for mainly for the restaurant sector downtown. I think that's gonna really take off. So some kudos to the Chamber of Commerce. And coming up, and unfortunately, I don't know exactly where this is gonna be held, but on April 11th and 12th, the Rhythm Ropers are actually hosting the provincial skipping championships here. And having seen skipping, it is amazing. And I would think that if a person had an opportunity to go and see these young people skip, I think that this is an opportunity when it's right here in our backyard that it should not be missed. So maybe put that on your schedule of, along with all the other things that have to be attended to, that to drop in and take a look at that, because I think that'll be some exciting athletes performing in our community next weekend. So on that note, and seeing nobody else has got their hand up, I'm gonna go on to item number 11, which is our bylaws. And what we have here is we have the local service establishing bylaw. So staff are proposing establishing a local service area for infrastructure improvements at 85 Baker Street under the provisions of the community charter. This bylaw ensures that 100% of the project costs, including interest, are recovered from the benefiting property owners. Council is requested to pass first 3 readings of 85 Baker Street Local Area Service Establishing Bylaw 3639/2025. Because this project involves long-term borrowing, council is also asked to pass 3 readings of the accompanying loan authorization bylaw. We have some here from city staff.
Yes, I can speak to this.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we've been working with the chamber for a number of months now on their proposed project at 85 Baker. They're going through the provincial process to get the project funded, and one of the ways that the city is in a position to support this project without costing taxpayers is through this local area service. There's one property there, it's the chamber property, so they would be the only one participating in that. And basically what this would do is we would do those improvements, those street improvements, and then the property would pay us back over a period of 25 years with interest. So we would upfront those costs and do those improvements and recoup that over time.
Councillor Payne.
Yeah, this was a really interesting piece to look at. Wasn't familiar with this. But it did say the benefiting property owners. So the property owners at 76 and 86 Baker Street won't benefit from this? That's what I'm trying to understand, why it's all being carried by the chamber.
Yeah, these improvements are strictly for their project. They're the benefiting property owners.
Okay, cause the Schedule A that we have, it has a red line around, it looks like Baker Street in general, so those So those other two properties don't front onto the improvement area?
The improvements aren't for those other properties, they're for this property. That's why they're the benefiting property. Even though they start further down the street, they are.
So this
all
Schedule
those
A
upgrades-
isn't exactly what's being improved then, I guess, is what I'm trying to understand.
We have to,
I'm missing something here.
Yeah, to improve, to upgrade those services, we have to start where they are and size them on that route. So that's why that's, it's not where you start, it's what property gets the benefit of it.
Councillor Woodward.
So, as far as I understand with this map, the 91 is the Railtown building, and then 85 is the parking lot.
Where the new building's going, yeah.
And then, so the services that are being put in are there to manage the outflow from the building? Like outflow, water, sewer, all that? So the services are up to the Railtown building already?
I thought it was talking about roads and sidewalks and other amenities like that, so to me, that would improve both sides of the street. That's all I'm trying to understand, the fairness of this, I guess.
Yeah.
So there will be improvements accrue to the neighborhood in general, of which other neighbors will be co-beneficiaries, I guess, but they won't be paying for it because that's the way it works.
Because they already, there's already a road to those properties, there are already services to those other properties. So these upgrades, we're tearing up the road because of this project, not because of the project or the properties on the other side of the street.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily who's fronting it, it's who's benefiting.
Okay, and how far down, do we own the property that Baker Street is on, right down to the boundary of the?
We will, so that the south side, I guess, of that road there's a portion of that will be acquired from the property owner on the balance of the lot, the Maglio property.
Okay.
So that will become road, and it will be, the property has to have, full frontage. You can't have that road not come into the full building, so.
That's all I was trying to understand from the map, just there
Yeah,
wasn't a
so
lot of
we will-
detail on it, but.
Yeah, so we'll acquire that portion of the what now is private property, that will become road. And ultimately, that's where the road will be extended through the Maglio lands when they get developed.
Okay, so the city will acquire that land to become part of Baker Street.
Correct.
Thank you, I just needed some clarity around that.
I'd like to move to get it on the floor.
Okay.
I'm not seeing 1, 2, 3, 4.
So,
I'm seeing,
so you're getting first and second reading, and then you're getting third reading for the local service area, and then you're getting the loan authorization first and second. And so we need to do them individually.
okay, so I'll put the first one on the floor.
Okay, if you want to, and it's seconded by Councillor Lockenberg, and then if you want to read it out.
Sure, I'll read it out. That the Corporation of the City of Nelson, 85 Baker Street, Local Area Service Establishing Bylaw number 3639, 2025 be read first in time by title only.
That's been moved and seconded. Councillor Lockenberg, you have a question?
No.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Page?
I'm okay with obviously the approach here and benefiting the property and all that tie-in. I'm curious because we're embarking upon the Baker Street upgrades and preparing for that. And this will be coming, I think, sooner than some of those other pieces. Where we are at design and understanding what our new focus of Baker Street's gonna look like, and is that gonna have an impact down here? Or are we just getting as far as sidewalks and some bare bins and standard curbing and wastewater? Are there gonna be maybe some thought about what the amenities look like in part of that bigger vision that's coming down the pipe?
That was probably more of a question for development services. They, have approved the sidewalks and lighting, et cetera, to be consistent with we sort of what we that part of Baker Street is, it's probably not necessarily gonna, I don't think it necessarily will track all the way through the rest of Baker Street and sort of on our this side of the highway. We already have a sort of a approach down in that Railtown area, so I think it's considered more Railtown than Baker Street, even though it's
right
on Baker Street. Yeah.
And a lot of that, there's a lot of work done on the Railtown SNAP, which you were around for, and when that was developed, Sustainable Neighborhood Action Plan, I think that's the SNAP stood for. So there's a basis there, and the general design and layout of this area. It's not, we aren't doing the full stretch. That'll come more when the Meglio lands come in and see how everything patches in. So for a lot of this, we talked about sidewalk width, making sure that met needs, and road width, things like that. But as far as piling in amenities, is just a short little shot of road, right? So it's not necessarily required there. And regarding the planning that's happening for Baker Street, we're still many years away from that. Probably a few before really getting into the part of the planning process for that. So
probably most thinking a lot, like there's a lot of really beautiful amenities in front of the chamber already, green areas there with the creek and everything, but probably most thinking about how far we go with street lighting and whether that's accented or above and beyond just what we might see in some of the other areas of town, and thinking trees, right, where those are going and how those are gonna be incorporated into the sidewalk space, and whether there's a lot of it or a little of it.
Yeah, Tom, I don't know.
There's a formal landscape plan that's been developed by a landscape architect, and it's with our architect Matt Stanley Architecture Office for the site. So it's been approved by Development Services, and it's been submitted as part of the building permit application.
Yeah, I was speaking to the street.
Just let's follow procedure. Can I have a motion of council to engage the proponent in answering questions? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Payne, seconded by Councillor Woodward. All those in favor of having the proponent answer questions? Sorry, Tom, I just have to follow the procedural bylaw. Okay, if I will allow you to ask the proponent a question.
Well, thanks for offering this suggestion. I'm sure you guys have done a great job with the site side. My question's more on the sidewalk and city side.
Yeah. So that is part of the, the landscaping bylaw. They have to conform to our standards.
So lots of trees, lots of streetlights in the area.
Sufficient.
Okay.
I don't think we would go over and above the call of duty, but we'll do as best we can within the project parameters.
Yeah.
Okay.
and it's not being treated as your typical residential neighborhood. It's being treated as what it is a future sort of core commercial area. So
yeah,
being designed as such, and with trees and with appropriate lighting down there and everything. So
okay.
Yeah,
just curious about doing a nice job. That's all. I know you guys are.
Well, there's the heat issue too. You want to plant a lot of black.
Heat mitigation.
Okay. Yeah, that's where my curiosity is.
Councillor Tate.
Thank you. I have a nerdy question. So I had to look up what a local area service is, and the bylaw has to describe the service, define the boundaries, identify the methods of cost recovery, which I think I picked that up in the bylaw. And so describing the service is the roads, the sidewalk, that portion. And then the boundaries is just this one property is the one that is this local area. That one property only will be the one that has to pay back the money. The method of cost recovery, so is it gonna be taxation or parcel tax, or is it amortized? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it'd be taxation, and it's one parcel, so, but yeah, taxation would be how that's recovered. Yeah.
And that's that 25-year thing.
Yes.
And so is that after the when does that begin? When does the 25 years begin?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, we would probably wait to lock in that borrowing, at the time the project, once they start expending those funds, maybe get some short-term project financing through MFA while that's going on, and then once we know the exact dollar amount, then commit. Because again, like we talked about earlier, once you make that commitment to borrow for 25 years, that's the amount for 25 years. So
Yeah.
we want to be very sure that we know what that dollar amount is, and we're quite comfortable and confident that that's what the amount is going to be. So we'll probably wait until that point. But it'll all happen very, in order.
And then as a follow-up, but different, I'm curious how these sorts of things, they don't come up often for Nelson, city of Nelson, but how these sorts of things kind of make you have to rejig your work plan for the normal public works, what we already had planned. Because this sounds like the project would be completed by our own personnel?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It might be a contractor that completes this work.
Okay.
That's sort of the thinking at this time.
Right.
We'll do, I think some of the work, but likely that, because they have bigger works that they wanna do, it probably makes more sense to, contract the work together with the other work they have to do.
Oh, okay.
And our crews don't do big long stretches of sidewalk and curb
Yeah.
and gutter and things like that, so yeah. So there will be the pipe work, the in-ground work.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we'll be looking to do, but then beyond that, all the sort of civil or the paving sidewalks, that would be.
And so I'm curious, because this to me all sounds like a good idea, so I don't know how to poke any holes in it. Like, what are the disadvantages to saying yes to this? It doesn't sound like it's gonna affect our work plan too much. It sounds like it's where we wanna go in that neighborhood. I usually try to look for the negatives to find it, and I didn't find anything. Sorry, I was trying. Like, did you write the bylaw properly?
We're upfront in the money and recovering it over time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and can you put a lien on the property to get it back? Okay, I feel good, thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry, just one.
Councillor Page?
Of the $750,000, part of it is for the improvement, but part of it is for the land acquisition? Or is
No,
it-
all for improvements.
Isn't there a portion of land at the end of Baker that you mentioned,
Yes.
and it mentions in here, acquisition of land?
That will be donated by the property owner. That's for a tax receipt. That's what the.
Okay, so it's all, okay, right.
And they, obviously, us taking that road to the start of their property has some benefit for them down the road.
Of course, yeah, no, I just saw it in there in terms of cost of servicing plus acquisition of.
No,
So I was wondering what that was about.
yeah, it's.
I think Councillor Payne has a question about
Donated for a tax
Donated.
receipt. Yeah, so we can, as a municipality, issue tax receipts that businesses can use as a taxable deduction. So we have an independent body assess the value of that land. Is that how we would normally
Yeah, it's a
do that?
fair value, and I think we had a engineer or somebody gave a valuation on that, somebody else that's not involved in the transaction, so.
Interesting. We're just learning so much tonight.
This is a big one for me, yeah.
Yes, this is a
Perhaps
little
it's-
complex little piece of.
Just trying to scooch it in after dinner.
I don't know if it's complex, having gone through this whole thing, it's complicated because of all the steps involved. But it sounds like, as usual, you guys are just on top of it. But yeah, I'm just trying to have a better understanding of it, so I am able to answer questions when they are inevitably asked.
No.
So thank you for that. Got it.
Okay, so The first recommendation has been moved and seconded. I see no further hands up. All those in favor? And that carries.
I'll move the second one, Mayor.
Okay,
So I'll move
and
it.
seconded by Paige.
That the corporation of the city of Nelson, 85 Baker Street local area service establishing bylaw number 3639, 2025 be read a third time by title only.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. I think we've had all the discussion pertaining to that unless somebody had a last minute additional thought. All those in favor? And that carries. Trying for number 3. Do I have a mover? Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Woodward. Councillor Page.
Get it back there. That the corporation of the city of Nelson, 85 Baker Street Loan Authorization Bylaw number 3641, 2025 be read a first and second time by title only.
Okay, councillors, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And then moving on to number 4, Councillor Page, seconded by Councillor Woodward.
That the corporation of the city of Nelson, 85 Baker Street, Loan Authorization Bylaw number 3641, 2025 be read a third time by title only.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, and that carries. So thank you for that, councillors. Thank you for the proponents for being here to answer any questions that we might have additionally had to ask, which we did. So thank you for joining us this evening. Councillor Tate.
I have to riff off this. Is this a legislative mechanism that could be used for bus service or utilities? I don't, like where the local area service pays for the improvements? I'm just wondering, is that a thing that happens?
I think it's related to land,
Okay.
so you're improving an area.
Uh-huh.
And that area, you know, the properties in that area, you know, I think another one that's floated around for a while is Cherry, right? So that those, so that, you know, that road isn't paved up there, so they could do a local area improvement and get the road paved, and it would be from those property owners. In the past, we had a different split on how much the city was paying and how much the property owner was paying. You know, those bylaws, you know, that old bylaw we had is out of date. It reflected the municipal act and those things. So this is the first bylaw under the
New rules.
community charter and the so yes, you know, it, like I said, it's really property based, so because you have to go to the property owners to, you know, to get that, you know, their approval to, you know, to enter into an agreement like this.
This will be the new mechanism going forward, and we will be, I think, finishing off the repeal of the old municipal bylaw later this evening.
Can I just riff off?
Councillor Page, riff off or whoever you want to.
I thought of the same thing. Well, I thought of something similar. And I'd wondered if this was a time now that we've done this under this supportive work to reach back out to those property owners and potentially bundle, like, as opposed to just Cherry. There's been a few requests over the 6 years I've been here for gravel roads to be paved. Could we go to all of them and say, do one local service improvement bylaw that covered all those sections?
Yeah, we could look into that. I'm not sure if you can do that or not. I think they have to be contingent, right?
That'd be, yeah, you can't do a road in Uphill and then do a road in Rosemont.
So
We could
the second question there is, do we now reach back out to those groups and say, you know, we've actually done this work now, do you wanna revisit this? I know they've been offered in the past, but I don't know if we've been ready.
And we probably, you know, need a conversation with council around what the city, if any, is willing to contribute into those type of improvements. So.
Photo was the other one.
Well, and Creek Street is the one that's sort of in the works there. That is trying to get a petition passed to, you know, to make improvements there. So that's probably the one that's closest to, you know, happening.
And you will see that in the next couple of meetings.
Okay.
Extreme.
And we will know what you mean then.
As long as the petition goes forward. I think we've sent it out. I don't think we have received it back.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
And going forward, each one of these LASs will be a separate bylaw.
Yes.
Okay. I hear
Yeah,
you.
which is kind of the messy part of when it was municipal, so this will all be, they'll all be,
They will be separate and it will be very dependent on how it works for the city and how it works for
They'll all be in different ways.
the property owners rather than this is how it is.
Yeah. Fun.
Councillor Payne.
And I just wanna clarify one more thing, because it is a parcel tax on the particular benefiting property. So when we say it's paid by taxation, parcel tax is taxation, but it's not general taxation, it's just the benefiting properties.
The one in the bylaw,
Yeah.
the ones in the bylaw.
So whichever area of the city we go to, it'll be parcel taxed on those particular properties.
Yeah, and again, assuming, right now, the old bylaw, the property owners paid a certain percentage and general taxpayers paid a certain percentage, right?
Okay.
So you can structure it that.
Whereas in this
combination
situation, it's 100% to
to the
the
parcel.
benefiting property. Got it.
Okay, so we've got all that done. So now we wait for final readings in next couple weeks, couple meetings.
Yeah.
So thank you for attending. So moving on to bylaw 11B, fees and charges amendment, youth center, bylaw number 3636. The Nelson District Youth Center, NDYC, offers a safe, inclusive, and engaging environment where young youth can develop essential life skills, build social connections, and participate in both recreational and educational activities. While NDYC is committed to maintaining affordability for all community members, staff find it necessary to implement an increase in fees. Council is now being asked to adopt fees and charges amendment, Youth Center, bylaw number 3636, 2025. So it's been moved by Councillor Lockenberg, seconded by Councillor Payne. I think we've had discussion and raised our concerns in previous readings of this bylaw. So if you want to read it, Councillor Lockenberg.
With the Corporation of the City of Nelson Fees and Charges Amendment, bylaw number 3636, 2025 be finally adopted.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Is there any further questions, councillors? Councillor Tate.
Thanks much. More of a comment than a question. I am curious, not for this round, but when we consider pricing again in the future, if it could be something that we talk about whether to bake in a certain amount that would be intentionally set aside for improvements and maintenance, because that's a lovely old building that is an incredible asset to our young people. My kid was there last week. They are wonderful, but it's gonna cost money at some point to fix it up, and even just the lipstick and rouge. I was just curious if that was something that we could talk to the staff about what kind of projects they would be looking at that are kind of the smaller projects, but if we chucked a quarter on the end of that or something like that in the next go round, then you could repaint or something like that.
Right, so you're talking sort of like an operational slash fund versus capital or whatever. We'll discuss it in the future.
We could just talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Any further questions? All those in favor, and that carries. Thank you, councillors. Up next, we have the repeal of the local improvement charges. The City of Nelson Local Improvement Charges Bylaw number 2223, 1987 was established under the Municipal Act to regulate local improvement changes for various infrastructure projects. However, this legislation is now outdated as the Community Charter has replaced the Municipal Act and provides a modern framework for local service financing through local area service bylaws. Council is now being asked to adopt bylaw number 3638, 2025, repealing bylaw 2223, 1987 local improvement charges. Is there a mover? Okay, moved by Councillor Woodward. Is there a seconder? Councillor Page. Councillor Woodward.
With bylaw number 3638, 2025, repealing bylaw number 2223, 1987 local improvement charges be finally adopted.
Anybody have any questions about this? slowly but surely, we keep eliminating bylaws, but you have to have another bylaw to eliminate the old bylaw, which still means the bylaws on the books. I've always wished there was a day that you could just kind of go, okay, you eliminated the bylaw, and then there's like blank.
Less government?
We're not decreasing the number of bylaws.
That's liberation.
But anyways, okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, councillors. Okay, moving on to 11D, the 5-year financial plan bylaw 362002-2024 for the years 2024 to 2028 was adopted by council on May 7th, 2024. Since adoption and during the year, several unanticipated expenditures arose and were brought to council for information with recommendations from staff that a financial plan amendment would be forthcoming. These items have been compiled and incorporated into the 2024-2028 financial plan amendment. So there's lots of information there for people. Councillor Lockenberg. Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Woodward, Councillor Lockenberg.
That the 5-year financial plan 2024 to 2028 amendment bylaw number 3642-2025 be read a first and second time by title only.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Payne.
I notice on the spreadsheet that we have here, there are certain items highlighted in yellow. Is there any possibility of adding to this what you're denoting by that, so that in future reference, when people take a look at this, they'll have a better understanding of it?
Yeah, so what we have done typically is exactly like this, just highlight those accounts that are changed, and I tried to put in the description here what those
Yeah, I
changes
read
were.
it and I saw it.
So you're
It's
saying another
just-
column that says original and then something
No,
that says.
I would just say down at the bottom, say yellow highlight means that this is one of
I
the
understand.
items
Yep.
that have been changed.
Yep.
So that
for sure.
anyone who hasn't maybe read through the whole thing would. Just sort of a legend of,
Sure.
for clarity. It's
Yep,
not a
no,
big
that
thing,
makes
but.
sense.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Seeing no hands up, all those in favor, opposed, and that carries. And recommendation number 2, Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Tate.
That the 5-year financial plan 2024-2028 amendment bylaw number 3642-2025 be read a third time by title only.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Seeing no hands up, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, councillors. Okay, getting down here. Recommendation from staff, 12A. Staff are presenting a city manager performance evaluation to council for consideration. Council may choose to adopt the policy as presented or direct staff to make changes and bring the policy back for further consideration. And I see our, Gabe, you're gonna have to tell me what your title is now.
Manager of Human Resources and Regulatory Services.
Regulatory, I was trying to think, what's the R word that he does? So, the Manager of Human Resources, welcome to the table. We haven't seen you for a while. Nice to see your happy face here.
Nice to see you all as well.
You'll be at the Ready Grants though, no?
No, he's not.
Pass that along.
That's what I said. We're gonna see him at Ready Grants, and I was told, nope, Sonia's taken over command of that now. So, anyways, perhaps, I mean, everybody's seen, the evaluation that's been circulated in your packages. And perhaps, do you have any questions, or would you like to hear just a brief, summary of the, work that Gabe has done on behalf of bringing this policy together? Okay, you're on.
Okay, well, I'll keep it short. As everyone recalls, we underwent a evaluation of the CAO last fall, and it was noted at the time that there wasn't a policy in place to guide the process. So I think there were a lot of questions that came up as we went along, and so obviously best practice would be to have a policy. So we had a couple conversations during that process, and so I tried to take some of the input from council and put it into a policy that will just put some parameters around how often we do this, who's doing it, how are we budgeting time and money to do this as well, and what does the evaluation cover. And so I think, I was trying to strike the right balance here to kind of provide some parameters, but also leave some flexibility in place for each council to kind of, shape the process a little bit as they may choose to do so. And also to make sure that it's not too onerous. So I thought the right balance was to be shooting to do this twice per council term. So one after approximately 2 years, and then one as the council is gearing up to enter into an election.
Councillor Payne.
No.
Page, sorry. Sorry, I just looked there and I just gotta remember,
I just
gotta
moved my
remember
hand
Rick is
up.
next, okay?
You get it in the second term.
Yeah, give me another 2 years, yeah.
I really appreciate this. I like the timelines. I think it's probably just along the lines of what we discussed before, but having reviewed it, I thought it really captured the sentiment of what the conversations have been over the 6 years I've been kicking around here. And so I have no suggestions for improvement. I think it lays it out for people in the public, for future councils, and just sets up a good standard. And good work. Thanks, Gabe. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Lockenberg, then Councillor Payne. Oh, okay, Councillor Payne.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I think you really have encapsulated the discussion that I remember having. I'm just interested in how it aligns with the policies throughout the rest of the organization. Is it a similar procedure? Are they annual reviews through senior management and?
More broadly, kind of our internal policies generally. I think it's always, I mean, in different, obviously the corporate officer could speak to this as well, but I think oftentimes we're a bit reactive. So policies come up for review when we realize that there's been changes made or the policy may not address something. Alternatively, when we realize there isn't a policy for something, like in this case, that often is the catalyst to drafting the policy. I'm not sure if you're asking, do we review them everything periodically or?
Gabe, I think it's more, what are we doing for other employees?
Like senior management, are they
Oh,
getting
for
reviewed
evaluation.
annually
I'm sorry,
or
I
biannually, the same
misinterpreted
with the
your-
360?
yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, so
Frame it.
last spring, we did some work on kind of our internal performance evaluations. So the performance evaluations, we have a performance evaluation policy, and for that, we're expecting everyone that has direct reports to be conducting a formal evaluation of their staff. So in this case, for our department heads, that would be coming from the CAO typically, whoever they report to, or to the general manager. Likewise, their direct reports, so their managers and supervisors are having a review done by the department head, and managers are also evaluating the staff that report to them. And the policy provides that for new staff, in the first 3 years of their time with the city, that is an annual process, and then after 3 years, that can become every other year type of evaluation. So that's what we have.
Yeah, we're gonna
Just
have
curious, I know it's not our
it's not our bailiwick, but we are having, HR will be coming in because of the fact that that was a little bit of also the like as we had this discussion when we were talking about reviewing the CAO and had questions come up, there was additional questions about what's the process internally. And so we will be having HR come, I believe, next month or June. Will be coming in to give us the update of how they've changed this process in the last year, but Gabe's probably now said the whole spiel on that too, but we're gonna have them in with a bit more and then to be able to ask, just so that we understand what the practice is, because I know that although it's not our purview to be doing that, there's often times when for any multitude of reasons, sometimes a councillor or the mayor will get pigeonholed and asked a question about process in terms of that. And so I think it's important to be able to, at a minimum, be able to redirect to the appropriate person to be asking the question to. And to be able to say that there is a process in place that is followed. So I think it's about knowing that the process is there.
Yeah, and I'll provide a broader
Yeah.
update of some other HR strategic items that we're working on. And apologies for misinterpreting your question. I was a little thrown off there.
No, it's probably my question.
I was just gonna make a comment on, similar to what Councilor Page said, is that, in the 6+ years that we've been here, that this is always kind of like finally needed this tightening and organization, cause that relationship between council and the city manager is just so critical, I mean, for moving things along. And I think this really formalizes that relationship and takes it out of like any kind of like personal or like it just moves it through term to term to term. in a very professional way, so I really appreciate that, and I think it's gonna really benefit future councils and future city managers because of keeping that relationship clean and concise and understandable, and there's timeframes, and everyone understands what's happening. So I really appreciate that, and I think it's a great move for council and the city manager relationship.
Okay, so, would somebody like to move the resolution that's attached in the recommendations? Councilor Edwards, seconded by Councilor Tate. Oh,
Sorry, go
Councilor
ahead.
Tate really wanted to do that, so Councilor Tate, seconded by Councilor Tate, you read that.
You read it.
That the council
Your
adopts.
birthday.
Give her a.
This is
Yeah,
my
birthday
moment.
present, yeah.
There you go.
That council adopts, and this is really the one I wanted. City manager performance evaluation policy number, oh wow, look at all that, cause it's a policy.
Yeah.
2640.00.0140.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, and that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gabe, for the good work on getting that policy done. And we were discussing, I said, let's hope it's done in the spring, and here we are. April the 1st, springtime, so
That's right.
thank you so much.
Thank
And we'll look forward to having you back.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Very good.
And if if for any reason, come, what day are we having those ready grant things?
Thursday.
17th? No, we're having that Thursday is the open house, but when are we doing the,
15,
on the 15th?
yes.
At the council? If you're over in your office, because we're starting at 2, and you
We're gonna
feel a
call you.
need to join Ready Grants, please feel free for old time's sake to come in and join us.
Explain to us what we've been explained many times.
Snacks, so.
Yeah, there's usually some snacks,
The
so.
open house.
Yeah.
I think Gabe will be phone a friend.
Okay, thanks all. Have a great
Okay,
night.
thank you so much.
Get stuck, you can phone.
Having fun.
Okay, moving on to information items. We have a list of them here today. We have the Advisory Planning Commission from February the 5th, Advisory Planning Commission from February the 18th, the Greater Nelson Economic Development Advisory Committee, December the 4th, GNED from January the 8th, and the Cultural Development Committee from February the 5th. Is there anybody that is looking forward to pulling one of these out for further discussion, or are we receiving the bundle for information? Okay, so it's been moved for, received for information by Councilor Lockenberg, seconded by Councilor Woodward. All those in favor, and that carries. Okay, and then moving on to reports. And our one report that we have here is from Development Services, the building permit statistics from March the 1st, the 26th, 2025. And
May I ask a question?
you sure can.
I'm just wondering, 2024, we just, we're sort of a little bit into 2025, but I was just wondering, with all of these numbers here, in sort of comparison, could the city manager talk a little bit about what's happening with building in this town? I know that there's been very few single-family homes being built, but there's lots of multi-unit construction happening. Is there any comment on how we're doing with all of this?
What I'm hearing from Nelson Hydro is they're steady but slower than in the past. I think we, in development services, started off pretty slow, but that seemed to be coming in now. So yeah, I think it's definitely not as robust as I think in the previous 3 or 4 years. And as you said, primarily those larger projects, we're not seeing as many of the the smaller builds as we have in the past.
We have our utilities crew will do the third-party servicing, and years past, sort of 3-4 years ago, they'd have a long list that they would be hustling to get through and make it through during construction season, and now that list is very short, and that's for those single-family dwellings. It takes one bit effort if it's an easy hookup to hook up a large building or a small building, doesn't matter, it's kind of, still gotta dig, get down there, you know, put the tap in and get it over there, but yeah, so another indicator is our third party servicing, it's just way down, so. You know, I think it is reflected here as far as the development of new dwellings, is, you know, single family dwellings is just pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty quiet.
And
And yeah.
what kind of impacts? I mean, because there are many large projects going. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the impacts of that slowdown. If that continues, let's say, for a few more years, is that? Cause part of me thinks that maybe that's okay, cause we were kind of at a fever pitch there for a bunch of years, and I know development services were under a lot of pressure, and maybe they can work on other things now, I don't know. Curious.
Are you talking about our own staff or the general economy?
I think the general situation in Nelson.
Yeah, I think, you know, we do have some larger projects that, you know, are multi-year projects, so I think from that perspective, you know, I think we're still seeing you know, some fairly strong demand on the construction side, although we do have a number of, you know, just smaller home builders, and I think they're seeing that, you know, where people had to wait a year or two to find a builder, you know, they're scrambling for work now, so I think definitely those smaller folks are probably being hit the most by these, and hopefully, I know sub-trades, et cetera, were really challenging to, you know, secure, so hopefully that availability will stabilize pricing. You know, build costs are off the charts here, and you know, do we see? Yeah, we don't necessarily see those coming down a lot, but at least not increasing how we have, and you know, projects having, you know, people that can build them in a small time frame.
Right. Okay. I just was curious.
Can I comment on the impact it might have on our operations too, and I don't know if the general manager jump in, but you know, he talks about this list, you know, getting quite a bit shorter. You know, we have a certain staffing level crews that we've built up in anticipation every year of a certain volume of work to be done and third-party connections, and when we don't have that, then we need to assign those folks to different tasks. And I mean, it's an opportunity to get ahead on certain projects, do some of our own capital work, but the focus becomes more in-house on city infrastructure and city projects. So it's a bit of a pivot and a, you know, bit of a change in direction, I suppose.
You know, a thing that I'm not sure about too, and it would be interesting to know from the RD side, is what development looks like in the RD as well, right? So it's down as well, similarly. Yeah, so I think that you're probably just talking about general, you know, cost of money, you know, economic uncertainty with everything that's going on. That the cost of building around here is astronomical, you know.
There was a glut, right? Bunch of projects went through the last few years, so.
Yeah, so I think it's just all building into that environment, and you know, to speak to CFO's point there, you know, it is offering some good opportunities for us to look at things. You know, we had, through a couple of reasons, fallen like behind on our plans for Baker Street, so we have to get Baker Street done, we have to do all those tie-in preps, right? And so we're behind, but now we're at a point where, you know, we're pushing our engineering group to say, hey, we need to get approvals to do that work, because we got the time, let's get back on schedule. So we're, you know, we're taking advantage of doing that. You know, we're making sure that our maintenance, you know, program is really good, you know, as far as exercising valves and, you know, our hydrant refurbishment and replacement and things like that.
So there's some silver linings to a bit.
There is, yeah.
A bit of a
yeah, with, you know, dead sprint for a bunch of years, right? And then you just kind of do like the critical thing, and so now is the time to take a bit of time and get back on top of that stuff. And you know, as well, we're doing some interesting, it allows us to try some interesting methodology. You know, we're double shifting on Kootenai, which is, you know, good to see and good to try out. So gives us, you know, I think we're, yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to look at business a little bit different as opposed to flat out, holy man, we got so many third parties we're doing, you know, everything's going, they're flying in there trying to pump it all out, and so it's good opportunity to get ahead of things.
Okay, thank you very much.
I don't think we wanna stay in a lull for forever because,
No,
I mean, development services is one of the key service areas of our city that actually generates income. So we need to, in the midst of all of this, keep our eye on the prize, cause we wouldn't want to be asking the same question in another year without looking like some activity was happening in the community.
and it's worth noting from over their perspective, they're incredibly busy. Like these
They are.
big developments, all of this stuff that's going on, like it's very, very busy, you know, we would, you know, what I understand from Natalie, she's been here 7-8 years, and a rezoning, you know, is like maybe one a year, and it's not that big of a deal, but here you are with, you know, 2 fairly significant ones, you know, like a whole lot of stuff going on, so. While we talked about the third-party utilities crew having an opportunity to turn some attention to things that had, you know, hadn't had much attention of late, they're still pretty flat out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, it's really very informative, thank you very much.
Can I just say with like full disclosure, I noticed that there's no accounts payable statement.
Yeah, I was thinking, where's the second, thank you for telling me what that was, I'm like, there's always 2 things on this form.
So I will look into that. I don't know why it's not in here, but we do have, we all talked about having Giaconda retire, and we have some temporary staff filling in downstairs, so it could be that it didn't fall through into someone's work plan, but.
Yeah, thank you for telling
That's
me
my
what was missing there, I'm
responsibility.
just like, there's only 1 line here, there's always 2 lines on this page.
Well, I'll move the one line,
Okay, so move for receipt of information, no, you have a question, Councillor Page.
Well, and I don't know if it directly relates to this, because I forgot again that I'm supposed to put my correspondence question into my council report.
Oh, that's
So
fine, so go
I have a
ahead.
correspondence question. So in our last correspondence question, or last correspondence package, Selkirk College sent us a letter saying that they'd completed their strategic plan and they would be happy to come and do a presentation to us on that. Considering the changes that are going on in that environment, I personally feel that would be very valuable to have them come in. So can I request that we do?
They're on the list, it's again, trying to get that
Great.
fitted into.
Yep.
These next 2 months have a lot of heavy front end, really city, just with these zonings and
Just want to double
workshops
check,
and-
cause there's no way for us to know what's coming up unless you say it, and sometimes other groups tell me that they're coming in and I try and jot that down so I know, but just want to make sure that that was there. And then this is just one of those questions that I'm curious about, cause I wasn't here when the Kulos property down on the waterfront was moved through with all the permissions that it needed, but now that people are living in those buildings, was there funding that was coming to the Affordable Housing Fund through that agreement? Was there any money, any of those donation per door situations there that should be looking for money from them? Sending them a bill, whatever we need to do for that?
We can find that out.
Okay.
I don't recall that detail.
Cause that is normally how the affordable housing,
Yeah, that went through a number of iterations, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
so
sure.
just curious, cause as we, continue on to the next, I know we're still rolling those 2 projects through, but obviously we're looking at what's gonna be coming.
So on
in
the
those.
positive side, as part of the water multi-use pathway there, they've come to an agreement with contributions from that development towards that project, so that's.
But that shouldn't interfere with any agreed upon contribution to the affordable housing.
Yeah, if it was there, then.
Yeah.
Then
Okay.
we'll collect it if, I just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't-
I'm just
I can't
assuming,
remember either, and I mean, and
yeah, I'm
sometimes
assuming
it's
they're
about,
not
it's
gonna
about
show up at the
amenities,
check.
sometimes the trade-off is, they're gonna do more amenities. Yeah, I don't remember either, gosh, that's a long.
Cause that property was zoned for a long.
For a long time, it was zoned long, for a long time before it started even getting built on.
Definitely for a long time. I remember being here, sitting in the gallery, watching some of that happen, but I didn't remember the outcome. And are we gonna open up that street?
Cedar?
No, that does not get open through because of the railway tracks. We put that traffic through there, that would have triggered upgrade of that
We
crossing,
have
would
to
have
put in a
triggered.
signal crossing.
Okay, thank you.
So that's Hall Street can
Because
manage.
there's another opportunity, in my opinion, for parking. That could practically be commuter parking right there. There's a number of
The cost of those at-grade rail crossings to put in are
Yeah, no,
multi-million.
even with that, but even without the crossing, you've got
bunch
a
of
little
people
cul-de-sac there,
Park
which
by the YRB lot along the fence line there, that's a spot that
there's,
people use right
but
now.
beside the Kulos development,
Yes.
there's maybe 12 or 16 parking spots
Yeah,
that,
which was required as part of that development.
it's part of the development
No, it was required as part of the development to create
for them to create that,
that parking, yeah.
but it's an opportunity for us.
To charge for it or
Yeah.
to, yeah. Yeah, so that's,
Cause we just need to put numbers on the road now, don't we?
that's on
And
street parking, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's close to the.
It's close to town.
Yeah.
Even if we went with the $5 commuter parking, it's still more opportunity for people to find a spot. That's it.
Anything further from the correspondence package, Councillor Payne?
Nope, that was it.
Councillor
And that
Page
was, we
has
didn't
one.
have a one this time, so that was just a leftover that I had from last time.
Councillor Page?
So with the endorsement of our AMI resolution, I'm assuming Scott may have seen, would we do any additional advocacy now that that's locked in? Would we try and hit up Mr. Dix to see if he's aware of our ask and if we might see if we can
Yeah, I think we, and should have a planning session. I don't think we have to wait for the UPCM. We were talking about our
I don't think so.
liquid waste management plan that we might need to do some lobbying around as well, so maybe we'll schedule at one of our meetings, take some time and talk about some of those advocacy that we wanna do now.
Well, I think renewables is high on their priority list in some degrees after the drought and the peas in the can basket. And you've got a new minister who's astute and technical in nature, so it just seems like a time to get to them before we get to those big asks.
Okay, well, we'll note this one so that we don't lose it. And like I said, we have the liquid waste management plan, there's opportunity now that you don't necessarily have to go to Victoria. You can set up a Zoom type meeting with the minister, so so if people have other thoughts, we can, I just think maybe we should take some time and just identify some of these areas. We obviously put in a number of resolutions at AKBLG that
Well, it'll be good to see what the outcome of them at AKBLG will be too, so.
let's see where
We wanna
those-
be able to, it's also, I think, good to go forward and be able to say that, yes, that
and the mayor.
that we've got it. Endorsement of AKBLG as we go forward and.
Yeah, and the mayor shared an article recently about, the impact of vegetation management on ratepayers versus taxpayers. This was an article talking about California and, should some of that be borne by general taxpayers as opposed to just ratepayers for
Vegetation
managing
management of the utilities.
Yeah, especially around the wildfire piece, right?
It was really, I thought it was a good article, so. Okay, I need a seconder on the missing report page. Somebody moved it, I need a seconder, Councillor Tate. All those in favor of receipt for information? And we'll double down on accounts payable next month. And so that takes us to 14, I received no notice of motion, no late items, and so resolution to adjourn. Councillor Pinero, Councillor Tate, you wanna second that, so you can get home for cake with the kids? Okay, 8:09, so that's been moved and seconded, all those in favor? Okay, that carries.